and welcome to Are You Enjoying This? The podcast where we roast terrible cinema. My name is Sophie.
And my name is Emily.
And this week we are watching Miller's Girl. I'm apologising right now. This film is that bad.
Oh my goodness. It's worse than we thought.
Before we jump into all of the stuff about the film and we start discussing it, I want to let you know some exciting news. We are now on Apple Podcasts.
Yay!
It finally happened. We got approved.
This is very exciting.
So exciting, mostly for our friend that wanted us to be on Apple Podcasts.
Yes, this is a shout out specifically to Adam, who was like, I want to listen to it. It must be on Apple. So we have overcome many challenges.
Many
and we've
obstacles.
got it there. So
many
yay.
small obstacles
Yes.
that they were like, and for that reason, you have been denied. But now we're on Apple Podcasts and you can leave us a review on there. Yes. So please leave us 5 stars if you like it and love it. If you leave anything less than that, apparently you get horribly suppressed.
Oh,
so I'm being like an Uber driver. I'm really asking for 5 stars here, if you don't mind. If you don't mind.
Horribly suppressed.
Horribly suppressed.
It's
so
5
yeah,
stars or nothing. If you're not enjoying it, it's fine. Just close. Just close
throw
the tab.
away.
Swipe away. It's
just
good.
don't leave us a bad review. It'll hurt my heart. We've worked really hard on this. We really
Also,
like making these.
If you're watching the video, which is available on YouTube, shout out to our new camera lens.
New camera
Doesn't it look
lens.
better?
We're using it for the reaction specifically, but we're also using it for the podcast, and it is lovely. Thank you, benevolent leader Emily, for buying us a new lens. It is beautiful. It is worthwhile. We are no longer blurry in the reactions.
Yay! Realistically, why we chose Miller's Girl for this episode is that we were desperate for a shorter film.
Yeah. So we're always trying to pick films that you might have heard of.
Yes.
Because, look, are there some amazing films that are crap and very small budget and would be perfect on this podcast? Yes. But being that we're a very small podcast, we would like to cover things that are maybe Googleable.
Yes.
So maybe we'll do Birdemic down the line, but that's not what we're doing today.
No.
And it does seem to be the way that the big blockbuster films that you will have heard of that have been horribly panned are too long. And when I say too long, I'm talking 3 hours.
Yeah. And we were just running out of time, energy, and brain cells. And we were like, we have to find something that isn't extremely long. Or, you know, something where it was made in a budget of $10,000. Like, obviously, it's bad.
Yeah.
So we were looking, and I suddenly remembered, like, in the back of my brain, I got this little twinge of, like, wait, what was that strange film with Jenna Ortega in it? And I looked it up, and it was significantly under 2 hours. And we said,
Fabulous.
brilliant, I'm in.
Now, did it feel like it was under 2 hours? No. It did not. Not in any way. We got to 55 minutes and we were expecting the ending.
Yeah. We were like, this must
I was
be
like,
about
oh,
to end.
this is about it, right? I turned my phone over. It said 55 minutes. I was shooketh.
Yeah, we were barely halfway. I will say that despite the fact that kind of nothing much happens in this film, there is a great deal of plot and twists, and I under no circumstance recommend watching this. So I think you are consuming the best possible Miller's Girl content you can here.
I would like to say one thing to counteract that. Whilst I do not think you should watch this film in any sense of the word, the budget that film clearly spent on lamps and light fixtures.
If you are into lamps,
If you like a good vintage lampshade, or lighting objet d'art, this film is for you. The classroom, it's not a classroom. It looks like a theatre.
Yes.
The classroom that this all sort of takes place in has some of the most beautiful vintage and antique lamps I've ever seen.
it's stunning. Slight trigger warning for
More mature content and some inappropriate dynamics in relationships between a student and a teacher.
yes, if that may bother you, you can leave.
Yeah.
I will say, because that's what the film is about, I will say it is based in such ridiculous fantasy that I did not find it particularlarly disturbing. I found it more perplexing and frustrating.
There's
There
a
was
lot of
screaming,
alluding to stuff rather than stuff actually happening.
which I did like.
Which is better. But, you know, they didn't waste an opportunity of really grossing you out, is what I'll say. They said, we're going to gross you out and we're going to do it to a level that is permanent.
Yeah.
And it stuck with me.
Saltburn got a lot of criticism.
Oh, Saltburn was a breeze.
This should have gotten more.
Honestly, the bathwater scene was much more tolerable.
Yeah, literally. Who hasn't, you know? Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh, my Lord.
That was a joke.
And on that note, I'm going to start reading the first part of the plot, you dirty, dirty harlot. Cairo Sweet. That is Jenna Ortega's character's name. So we're starting off really good.
It really
Cairo, spelled like the city, Sweet.
Yeah.
Cairo Sweet, an 18-year-old girl, lives alone in her wealthy family's mansion in Tennessee. Her attorney parents are away on a business trip while she completes her senior year in high school. Cairo takes the creative writing class of teacher Jonathan Miller and impresses him with her wide knowledge in literature and her familiarity with Miller's own book, Apostrophes and Ampersands. Miller has not written since he got married and started teaching. His emotionally unavailable wife, Beatrice, is a more successful author who disdains her husband's lack of ambition and failure to write new material. So that is where we start us off.
Yes.
And so this is all set in a school.
Pretty much.
But you wouldn't know that. No. And I'm going to let Emily answer why you wouldn't really know that this was set in a school.
I mean, they never say it's a school. There
are no other students there. There is not one shot of other students in the film until I think like an hour and 20 minutes in.
It was... Sophie said this film would make more sense if this were Limbo. It has the vibe of The Others. Where... I understand, right, it's set in the South and there's that whole, like, Southern Gothic energy of, like, the weeds growing in and everything's kind of wet and a little, you know, a little misty.
The sort of, like, history of the land, post-antebellum era.
Yeah.
Like, the sort of, the energy is quite high.
But they laid it on so thick that if it weren't for the coach character, I would feel like everyone was dead.
Yeah, everybody's dead and they're stuck in the school and this is their version of Limbo.
Yes.
And they need to atone for what they've done. That is honestly entirely how it feels. I will say Martin Freeman playing an American was odd because we obviously know him as Watson from Sherlock mostly.
Yeah.
But also in, you know, all of the Simon Pegg films and that kind of stuff. And The Office and whatnot. He does a fairly good job, I think, pretending to be a Southern American, but I really don't purport to be an accent specialist.
I would say his accent was...
fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe a little weak, but not so bad that it would kick you out of the film, but it was strange to see him playing this Southern teacher archetype. From the first shot, you know something's up because they're panning in on this stately old colonial era house in the South. Jenna Ortega's character her house is very luxurious. Her parents are not just on a business trip. She literally said, they're gone.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting them back. Essentially, she's been left in this town.
Her bedroom does look like an anthropology showroom.
Yes.
Like beautiful big mirrors and dark velvet sort of bed sheets and draperies, and it looks kind of like a opium den.
Yes.
So our vibe. Oh my Lord, if I could have that as a bedroom, I would just roll around with that.
Yeah. She's applying to Yale, right? And that's kind of what this focuses around, is about her trying to do something special with her life to add to her Yale application.
Yeah, her entry essay, or what we in England we call it a personal statement. But sometimes these universities will like send you a question. You have to write an essay on the question and your experiences, and that is sort of like your audition to get in. But this one is like describe and talk about your greatest achievement. And her friend's like, you've got a 4.6 GPA. You're going to be valedictorian of the school. And me and Emma are like, yeah, but if you're applying for Ivy League schools, like, yeah, you have to have that.
Yeah.
But that's not what they want. They want, like, I went on a summer yachting trip and yachted around the world on a catamaran by myself and a donkey, you know? Yeah. That kind of stuff.
A donkey on a catamaran.
But I also built the catamaran, you know?
No, absolutely. Yeah. Like, you do need to do things to stand out. And the fact that she is at this point and only just considering that probably means she isn't going to get in. So this is all sort of a bit of a waste of time, in my opinion. That being said, she lives in this like very fancy, very rich, expensive house, but allegedly she's like never left her small town. Like she has never left the boundaries of this town, which again makes it feel like limbo.
Her parents are away so much that she is essentially neglected.
Yes.
As a child, which is odd because I don't think that happens. Really, I don't think your parents could just piss off in your final year of your final year of high school, and like just everyone's like, that's fine.
Well, at this point she is 18, but I did not get the impression that the minute she turned 18 they left.
No.
It was kind of the impression of they've just let me live in this house and I guess buy very expensive clothes. Because the one shot you do see in the school where there are other students, everyone else is dressed normally.
Yeah.
And Jenna Ortega is always dressed in like thigh-high boots and things. And
Yeah.
it's very odd and kind of uncomfortable. I cannot express how much monologuing there is in this film.
Oh my lord. Everything is an allegory on an allegory on a metaphor, on a hyperbole, on a onomatopoeia, on an alliteration. If one more person starts talking in metaphors, I'm going to scream. So it's been directed and written by the same person, which I often think is a mistake, because if you write something and a production company or a like movie company thinks it's good enough to be made, you're often not the person to then translate it into a film, because you are not impartial on it. You can't see what's good, what needs trimming, and what it's your baby. You've spent probably years on this.
Yes.
So the woman who wrote it is also the one that's directed it. And I just think the whole thing is so inaccessible. The way this character monologues and narrates is just not how any human has ever spoken,
No.
in all of history, in any language, in any time.
Morning.
Oh my
You're like,
God.
what are you talking about? Like,
On that
oh my
topic,
goodness.
shall I bring up some quotes?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, okay.
Literature is my solace in the solitude, and writing is my only escape, because, you see, I've never left the edges of this town. It's positively gothic, really. Lonely girl longs to be meaningful. Lonely girl longs to be loved. Books make longing to seem romantic. That doesn't make sense. Books make longing to seem romantic. I think someone's written this out wrong.
I think so.
But there's another one that's heartbreak is a slow motion car crash set to Mozart. What does that mean?
No, but she also says, you know which one? The Requiem.
Oh my God, I hate it. They tell us to not look into the sun. The fuck do they know? It's bad for your retinas, man. I don't know what else to say. That is basically the tone of the whole film.
And it's not just our main character, Jenna Ortega, who is a hysterical 18-year-old.
Yeah.
Okay? It's not just her. It is essentially everyone. But her and Martin Freeman's character are just atrocious together. They should not be allowed to communicate because they both speak like that the whole time.
Yeah. From a viewership standpoint, it is boring, indulgent, psychotic, inaccessible. One cannot suspend their disbelief.
No.
I will watch Lord of the Rings and be like, this happened. This is history. Gandalf is in the Bible. I'll watch this film and be like, none of this is true.
No.
None of this has
doesn't
happened.
even, like, we are both women who were teenage girls.
Yes.
Who went to an all-girls school.
Who
We have
romanticize things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have seen the way that young girls can act around teachers they get little crushes on.
Yeah.
And it's not like this.
No.
And that doesn't mean that it's appropriate, but it's not like this.
So, I want to touch on the character of the teacher, who is played by Martin Freeman. When I tell you, for anyone out there who used to watch this TV series, Mr. Schuster from Glee had better boundaries with his students than this guy did.
We finally found a worse teacher than
Yeah,
Mr.
we have found a
Schuster.
worse teacher than Mr. Schuster, and it is Martin Freeman in this film.
Yeah.
He is, from the get-go, like, so there's like moments where they show you him just interacting with Jenna Ortega in class. And when he's giving corrections, he is, I'm sorry, I'm going to use you as an example, this close to her. It's just so too much.
And their first conversation is about the reading list that he gave out. And he was like, yeah, we're going to go through some of these. And she's like,
I've already read
all
them.
of them.
Yeah.
And he's like, all of them? That's 12 books.
That is essentially what you're supposed to do.
Also, like, I'm not saying everyone would have read them. But the idea of reading 12 books is not, oh my God, that is impossible.
That's not, no.
Like, it's
not like you've read 12 law books, where
No.
law books are like this.
yes.
Do you know what I mean?
No, she read 12 regular
Books,
novels
yeah.
that you might study in high school in
Yeah.
a creative writing class. It's just impressive.
She's just prepared.
So he is absolutely, he's not just impressed, he is gagged.
He is like,
what?
he is like immediately in love. He's like, oh
woman-
my God, she read the books.
Yeah.
And then she's like, yeah, and I read your book because he is an author.
Yes.
And I'll say, I put this in the reaction, I don't know if it's going to get cut or whatever, but I went to theatre school. Thank you for the applause. When I got my list of teachers through, I Googled them because I was like, okay, usually theatre teachers will have some credits. I want to see the credits
Yeah.
that my teachers have.
Who am I studying under?
Yeah, what are their proficiencies? One of them, I'm not joking, was Mr. Muscle from the 1990s adverts.
Yeah.
If there is ever a human man that's playing Mr. Muscle, ask Mr. Gunderson.
Yeah.
The muscle active foamer.
Go on, Gundy.
Mr. Gunderson was Mr. Muscle.
Exactly.
Shout out to him.
And he was my physical theatre teacher. Shocker. He's great at physical theatre. Anyway, that aside, the idea of having read your teacher's book is, again, not crazy.
No.
Is really
He's
not
like-
that insane.
You read the one anthology of short stories I've ever published? Wow.
And can we also discuss how cliche the title of his book is?
Yes.
Apostrophes and ampersands. Oh my God.
That's not a
Oh
novel.
my God.
You have a Tumblr. It immediately sets us up for the kind of immature character that Martin Freeman plays.
Yeah.
Which is something that is literally never addressed. It is not dived into that this adult man can be so complimented by one random student reading his book.
Maybe we'll do some research and see, but I would not be shocked if this screenplay, this movie script, started off as fan fiction. It
Yeah.
reads like
Yeah,
fan fiction.
it does.
And it is as slow paced and boring as fan fiction.
Yeah. Cairo's suite leaves her books in the room, and Martin Freeman, Mr. Miller, whatever his real name is, he starts flipping through her books, and as I said, he is absolutely gagged. He's like, good heavens, right? And he pulls out this book, which, as Sophie said, is a romance, and the only other adult essentially in this film appears who is the coach and also a teacher.
Apparently also the physics teacher.
That's it, the physics teacher. So he and Martin start flipping through these books, and Martin is so shocked. Oh my goodness, she's got this book that's a little smutty.
And they start reading from it.
Yes.
And when I tell you, it is some of the most viscerally disgusting porn. Or should I say corn? Sorry, algorithm.
Yes.
It is so blue. It made my toes curl,
Yeah.
and not in a sexy way.
No.
It was awful.
Yes.
It was really awful. Me and Emily are... we were teenagers of a certain generation where we may have dabbled in the world of literary blueness. And we were both like, it's disgusting. Every single trope,
Yeah.
every single cliche of porn written down in this film.
It was so rough.
And they present it every time
Yeah.
like it is a new
Yes.
way of writing about said acts. I want to very quickly touch on the character of Martin Freeman, this guy Jonathan Miller's wife in the film. So she's described as like an emotionally unavailable, more successful writer than him. And every single time you meet her in the film, she's pretty much wearing the same thing, which is like a negligee, some underwear, and a glass of whiskey in her hand.
Yes.
She's constantly drinking. Her phone is constantly buzzing. The person who is calling her is called Goddamn Amy. What that means, I don't know. The insinuation is that her editor is calling her. She's got a deadline coming up. She's quite stressed about it. But, like, the idea that she is emotionally unavailable, I disagree with entirely. I feel like their relationship is a very fractured one. It seems like they're kind of in competition with each other. She's not very nice to him, but he is also probably the most insufferable human that has ever been portrayed in film.
She can't look at you. She's too busy drinking and smoking like a harlot. We kind of end up in a situation, in my opinion, like, within the very beginning of this film, it's so obvious that it's hitting a lot of cliches. So when the drunk, sort of sexy but messy wife is at home, I was like, oh, so she is, a horrible harlot who is going to ruin his life or has dragged him down. But realistically, she hasn't really done anything wrong other than drink too much.
Yeah.
Like, there is an attitude of he can't connect with her. But he never tries to connect with her. He literally acts as though everyone is supposed to read his mind and understand what he's struggling with. And I don't understand where the issue is that he can't say, it makes me insecure that you have a successful book and I haven't written anything. Or I feel judged by you. He can't say that. Instead, he just sort of goes, oh.
Well, I haven't written anything since we've been married. Sort of like alluding to maybe the marriage is the reason why I haven't written anything. And there's a lot of discussion of, you're not a writer, you're a teacher. And he was like, yeah, but you married a writer. What does that mean? What does that mean? Stop finding excuses for not being creative. Look, creative people all have their slumps. That is just the way of things.
That's the fact.
There is no like, how can we help you access your creativity? I've noticed you are lacking in creativity. I find it like there is no healthy dynamic between any two characters in this film. Everybody is nasty to each other. Everybody is trying to like one up each other.
Yes.
It is toxic from top to bottom.
I also found it really annoying that he's like, you married a writer. He has written one book of short stories. Even if this is the most incredibly selling book of short stories, you are not going to be able to live off that one book forever unless you accidentally wrote To Kill a Mockingbird. Realistically, he is going to have to get another job.
Yeah.
It's not that traumatic. Like, what was he doing before he wrote ampersands and alligators or whatever he was writing? It's such a strange thing that maybe their relationship could even have been taking place during the writing of this film, and yet still this book, and yet still somehow it's his wife's fault. And it doesn't make any sense. How is it his wife's fault? Go sit outside and write something,
Yeah.
He even has the writing shed of shame, which is mentioned later, but she sends him away from the dining table and he has his little shed. And it's such a strange thing to do.
Cairo has to write a college admission essay for Yale University, with the subject being the greatest achievement to date, but she cannot find anything worthy to write about. Winnie, Cairo's best friend, tells her to experience the excitement of a teacher-student affair, such as she intends to do with the school's baseball coach and physics teacher, Boris Fillmore, who is Miller's best friend. Seeing the intellectual connection between Cairo and Miller, Winnie suggests Cairo seduce Miller. This scene all takes place in Cairo, General Ortega's bedroom. And this friend of hers, Winnie, I would like to just sort of like briefly gloss over her and tell you like what she's up to. She is wearing sequins during the day. She has got the shortest skirt I've ever bloody seen.
Her blazer is longer than her skirt.
She is turning up to school in a bra and pants 9 times out of 10, and that just seems to be accessible.
Yeah.
Acceptable. She is rolling on the teacher's desk.
Yes. She's straight from Euphoria High.
She is like a Euphoria stripper. Like, she is putting it out there. And hey, teenage girls can sometimes be too much in that sense.
They're rolling their skirts up. I know that.
We went to girls' school. But There is no world in which this is happening and this is not being reported to some sort of child services.
Yeah. The issue is Jenna Ortega and Winnie are clearly both being played by women who are like 25 plus. So
Yeah.
it's much less creepy because you're used to seeing those kinds of bodies doing those things. If this girl was 17 going on 18, actually, you'd be like, this is so uncomfortable.
I will say it feels like how Quentin Tarantino films always have got like some bare naked foot in them. This film is all about legs.
Yeah. Oh my
my God, it's just bare legs.
Legs everywhere.
It's uncomfortable because they're supposed to be like high school students.
Yeah.
You're a bit like, honey,
I don't need the thigh-high boot.
honey, put your gams away.
Put your gams away, literally.
But yeah, this idea of like Cairo should try and seduce the teacher. I mean, terrible idea. As adults, hate that. Don't do it.
And it's quite, in my opinion, a thin
Yeah.
sort of pretext to start the film.
Yeah.
I understand that. So, as I said, the other male adult character in this film is this coach. And Winnie is sort of cracking onto this coach. And it's very obvious. And he's like mildly flattered, but sort of keeping it moderately distant. Like, he's not touching up on her. He's keeping a gap between them. Whereas, obviously, with Martin Freeman, he is immediately
In.
He is gagged and gooped. You know,
He is like, this is a generational love.
Yes.
This is the love of my life. I will never experience this again. There is behind the eyes. There is absolute, complete and utter infatuation.
Yeah.
Which is horrifying.
Yes.
They constantly are staying late, like after classes, to discuss his book and books. It just, from the jump, it is immediately an issue that senior management should know about.
Yes, people would notice
Yeah.
that you were just sitting in your classroom that has this like soft, comfy seating area where you can have like romantic conversation looking into each other's eyes, reading historical adult romance. And it's just very strange. So basically that's the preset of the film is, I need to write something for Yale. I know I'll write about seducing a teacher, which I am so confident that if she spoke to any adult would say, well, that won't help you get
It's a
in.
fucking terrible idea,
That won't
mate.
help you get in.
Honestly, Yale is a trusted institution in America. They don't want students that are going to try and seduce the professors. That would be very bad for them. Sending in a personal statement to Yale about how you successfully seduced your teacher is like writing a cover letter for a job that talks about how you successfully stole from your last job.
Yeah. Fact.
Not that sexual seduction and that kind of stuff can be equated to theft in any way. But do you know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying.
It is a demonstration of, I am badly behaved in this environment.
Yes.
And that is my greatest achievement. By the way, let me in your educational environment. No!
No,
Fuck
you're weird. You're being weird, Jenna.
Fuck no!
Anyway.
Cairo and Miller begin to spend more time together outside class, sharing common interests in novels, poems, and Tunisian culture. Miller assigns Cairo to write a short story in the style of her favourite author, and she chooses Henry Miller. Despite being reluctant due to the author's provocative style, Miller, a different Miller, this is something I just want to touch on very quickly. The smutty book is also written by a Miller.
Yes.
And the teacher is also called Miller.
Yes.
Could we not have picked another name? It is so confusing.
Who wrote Lady Chatterley's Lover? Do that guy.
D.H. Lawrence, yeah.
Lawrence. Brilliant.
Love D.H.
Problem
Lawrence.
solved.
And that's a bit saucy, but like...
Oh, it was. It was.
I mean, at the time, it's incredibly saucy.
Yeah.
When he accidentally takes Cairo's cell phone, she asks him to return it personally. And when Miller arrives at her parents' mansion, Cairo welcomes him in a sexy dress and they kiss in the rain. Inspired, she writes an erotic short story about a sexual relationship between a teacher and his student. While Miller reads it alone, he gets extremely aroused and masturbates to it. Horrible happenings. Horrible, scarring happenings.
So there's been a lot of long, slow, laborious conversation.
So
There's been a lot
slow.
of looking into each other's eyes. There's been a lot of slow, sort of panning shots of Jenna Ortega being attractive and Martin Freeman looking lustfully. And have they gone to the poetry class by this point? I assume that's coming up.
That's not a class. That's like a poet.
poetry
It's like a
reading.
slam poetry
Yes.
afternoon in another sort of edgy Victorian antebellum house.
Yes.
They sort of like share a sofa together to listen
Yes.
to the poetry being read, and everyone else in the room is sort of like bending gender aesthetically, which can be true for a poetry reading, but it just seems quite odd that whoever has designed this scene has gone, right, they will be a straight couple in this. There'll be a straight sexual dynamic. But everyone else in the room is either queer or gay or
The room
wearing
is...
makeup
Yes.
to an aggressive daytime standard.
Yes. The room is queer with a capital Q. And you're like, who told these people about this?
No, I feel
They're
like this
not
is
invited.
this isn't their space.
No.
You know?
No. They are like, they're the white people at the cookout. What are you doing here?
It's fully they are the white people at the cookout.
Like, yes, but they're just so, I don't know, I guess, in touch. And it's one of the only times that we see other people.
Yeah.
There are so few people in this film, especially like a large group of queer daytime poetry enjoyers. It's just strange.
I am absolutely convinced this film must have been filmed during lockdown, COVID times.
Everyone is extremely far apart.
Everyone is far apart, with the exception of Martin Freeman and Jenna Ortega. There is nobody. There are no extras in any of the scenes in the school until genuinely almost the end. There is just empty hallways with Jenna Ortega. There is an empty classroom, Martin Freeman, Jenna Ortega. Like whole school field and bleachers. No one else is there.
No one is there.
No one is there.
And it's just Jenna Ortega walking out of the woods carrying a tray of coffees. Where she got these coffees in the woods repeatedly, I don't know what fey creature is producing these coffees, because genuinely
I met a rock gnome on the way. He's a barista, don't you know?
he only makes oat milk, but we'll live with it. Truly so bizarre. I don't understand. There is no sense of like place beyond it's the South, and all they do is eat biscuits. You never see anyone eat anything. Just to be clear, this is the American biscuit.
More of a scone sort of situation.
Yes. They're quite nice if you've never had them, but
All they keep doing is talking about chicky bicky time. I'm sorry, what?
and you can imagine how this sounds up against the absolutely purple prose of everything else. They're like, oh, like I looked, I don't know, across at her, across the room, like the moon splitting out from behind a cloud. Anyway, it's cheeky bicky time.
It's honestly like heartbreak is a slow car crash set to Mozart. Chicky bicky time! Anybody? Chicky bicky? And when I tell you, biscuits must come up about 5 times.
All they eat.
They're constantly either eating or talking about biscuits. If it's not about sex, it's biscuits. And look, if you're from Tennessee, tell me, is that what life is
That
like?
all it is. Jenna Ortega is clearly trying to seduce Martin Freeman.
Yes.
She's
doing a wonderful job of it.
so
He's
down.
immediately in.
It's like,
He's
and
like,
for that reason,
I'll have
I'm
one,
gonna
thank
lose
you.
my job. There's no implication that Jenna Ortega's character did it deliberately, but also how her phone ended up in Martin Freeman's bag, I don't understand.
no, there's the scene before. I don't think her phone is mentioned, but like, it's just odd. There's like in this scene.
Yeah, there's a moment where she's like, oh no, where's my phone? And then she just leaves.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that it's
in his
Martin
bag.
Freeman's bag.
And him and his wife are supposed to be going away for the weekend, and it's all getting very rushed. His wife is really busy and is stressed about her editor, and then Martin Freeman's like, I need to go and drop off this phone. It's just very odd. And then so it's like full sunshine raining, which again, I don't think that's usually
there's a cloud
standard
involved.
fare. So it's like sunshine raining, and Jenna Ortega emerges from her colonial mansion in a like grey silk slip dress.
Yes, like a cowl neck kind
Yeah.
of slip dress.
And Martin Freeman's turning up in his like schoolwear. It's supposed to be this like build up of like sexual tension, and it's like finally popping, but it isn't. It's just like, and there's an exchange where she's like, come like under the cover of her house, like, come over here. And he's like, no, you come over here. So she walks out into the rain and they have a kiss, which is disgusting. He is crinkly and wrinkly and her teacher.
Yeah.
And she is very clearly very young.
Yeah. It is
It's
uncomfortable.
not nice. It's not nice.
I think the implication is like she is like sexualizing
A provocateur,
him by
yeah.
wearing this dress. Like what, you've never seen someone in a silky dress before. Like, yeah, she looks good. Calm down.
Yeah.
Like, okay. I don't think it was appropriate for you to even drive her phone. I think you should have
No.
just left it at school and
You
said,
should
pick
have
it up
said,
at school.
I'm going to give it into reception at school.
Yeah.
Go and collect it there.
And so,
And he's like, I know where she lives. Why?
oh, because he knows the house. Because of her family being so
Oh,
well.
does she?
Oh, I know that house.
Christ.
Oh, wow.
It almost gives this insinuation of like, did it happen or was it part of the fantasy that she's writing?
Yeah.
So it's kind of quite ambiguous as to like whether you think it has canonically happened or if she's dreaming it up in some way.
After this kiss, she starts to write her romantic story about a teacher and a student in the style of Miller, no relation to the teacher. And in doing so, she starts writing this scenario that she's clearly imagining to be them. But when it's shot and shown to us, it obviously is them. So then you're kind of going, how much of this happened? Did he come in? Because
Yeah.
it cuts immediately to black. You're not 100% sure if he did go into her room and if they did bang or not. And
It makes very little sense to me. So once he's read this fan fiction and given himself a good time to it, we'll get back to that anyway. And the next day he sees her, he's like, this is completely inappropriate. You can't hand this in at school. I'm going to have to like, this is going to have to be like a sort of formal procedure. You've kissed her. So if he actually has kissed her, I think the issue of you can't give me like fan fiction for homework is less of a problem now. If we scale up actual sexual contact with a student and weird uncomfortable fan fiction for homework, I'm saying this one's up here.
yes.
I don't understand narratively how they've gone from they've had a kiss, he's read this piece of work, had a good time to it, and is now angry at her.
Yes.
Like there feels like there's no reason for him to suddenly change his mind.
No, it's like maybe that made him feel even more uncomfortable. But I mean, it's weird. It feels almost like when it's under his control, when he's the one driving the boat.
The sexual predator bus.
Yeah, when he's all aboard. But then the minute that she is like the aggressor, he's like, oh, wait, this is wrong. And I'm like, that's weird.
The thing is that could be a narrative point, but it doesn't feel like it was obvious.
No.
And it doesn't feel like there is a tone change of like he's comfortable being sexual with a student when it's his choice, but the minute she's making advances, he's uncomfortable with it.
This is me
if that
giving
was
it
clearly,
credit.
if that was clearly described, I'd be like, fair enough, it makes sense for the story, but it just doesn't. To go back to the story that she's written, if I could have, in the moment of watching that film, in that scene, pulled all of my skin off and melted into a puddle of death, I would have.
Yeah.
It was a round robin of all of the worst excerpts from all of the worst fan fiction and erotica that has ever existed. It is so nasty.
Yeah.
It's not... If it was just sexual, you'd be like, fair enough.
Fine.
Sexual things are happening. I don't mind films where there's like sexual content. That is not something that is uncomfortable for me. But the way they layer the sound of Martin Freeman's voice and Jenna Ortega's voice reading the world's nastiest fucking smut, I literally was like, this is so foul. If that was the intention of the director, you did a great job.
Applause.
I wanted to die.
Just like screaming, let it end.
I will say every cliche, sorry, just to add, every cliche to refer to someone's genitals,
Yes.
Oh, it's used. Every single cliche term. You've got a mons in there. You've got a mound.
Not the mound. Yeah, no. Basically, they kiss in the rain. It fades. It cuts to black. She writes this story, emails it to him by the time he's home, essentially.
Yeah.
And then he gets home, and he's supposed to be going on this weekend away with his wife, which, by the way, his wife suggested. So, like, it's her plan. She's like, let's go away. Let's have some fun. You know, let's have some grown-up fun between two actual adults. He's like, Brill. She is then like, I'm really stressed. My editor needs a bunch of stuff. Flipping heck. I don't know if we're going to be able to go this weekend.
Let's cancel the trip.
Let's cancel the trip. I'm really sorry. And he is obviously, I guess, mildly upset. They don't really show him being super bothered by it.
But then they cut to them, what looks to be like at the dining table, both working on their stuff. So she's working on her book. He's presumably working on marking the other student in his class's work that you never see. You never see any other students. And she turns to him and is like, basically, you're annoying me, you need to leave. He's doing nothing.
No. And I feel like there could have been something that could have shown that she was overreacting, right?
Yeah.
Let's say he's like clicking a pen in a way that's annoying.
Yeah.
And then she is like, right, that's it. Get out. I'm stressed.
Go down the garden into your writer's shed.
Now, I can understand if you'd have done that, because then we'd go, that's unreasonable. You can't treat someone like that. But he's literally doing nothing. So she just sort of looks up and is like, get out! Like, it's like Beauty and the Beast mode.
Yeah. Her reaction, I remember at the time being like, I don't like him, but what is her deal?
Yeah, what? And that's like one of the only times that we really see her sort of acting out in a big way. And it was just very strange. They could have just easily set something up for you to go, oh yeah, that was a bit too harsh.
It's a typical sort of like Christopher Nolan, dare I say, misogynistic character choice of being like, this woman is evil for no reason. She is just nasty. She just wants to make his life hard. But we don't know why. We're like, because he hasn't written another book, maybe? It just doesn't make any narrative sense why this woman would be so twisted.
Yeah. And who cares that much about their partner's job? He's making money.
Yeah.
They have their house. They can go on trips. They can drink as much alcohol as they want. There are
And they
bottles
do.
on every available surface, like unopened ones too.
They're living like Glaswegians in that sense. Sorry, Glasgow. Love you deeply.
But like there are full unopened bottles of like Maker's Mark and bourbon and all these things on the surfaces, and for some reason she is, I guess, supposed to be deeply upset that he's not writing more. Anyway, he gets sent out into his shed where he receives the email from General Ortega with this diabolical story which they both sort of binaural ASMR-ly read into your ears.
Yeah.
They're just twirling around you going, Mons.
Whilst he tugs himself off.
Yeah.
Rank.
Why is he like...
It's like Buckaroo. Absolutely rank.
In his wet little shed.
I don't think it's supposed to come across as disgusting as it does, but it is absolutely foul. It is absolutely foul. Look, if you've watched this film and you like that scene, I think you should be tested.
Yeah, I don't know what for, but there's something wrong with you.
It does feel as well, like, and I know this is a bit of a millennial, zillennial sort of trope, but everyone in this has got a personality disorder. General Ortega, for real, has to be BPD.
Yeah, there's something going on.
Everybody is just neurodivergent to the nth degree.
Yeah.
To the absolute nth degree.
Even from the very first line, we were both like, well, there's something wrong with her.
Exactly.
100%. That is sort of not the climax of the plot by any means, but that's sort of the...
Climax of something.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Oh, God, yeah, climax.
It was a bad word to use. Miller declares the story unacceptable and demands that Cairo rewrite it, but she calls out his cowardice and hypocrisy. Offended by Miller's rejection, Cairo sends the story to the school's vice principal, Joyce Manor, and as revenge to expose a possible affair between them. She also takes advantage of Winnie's attraction to her by convincing her to send sexual photos of themselves to Fillmore, leading them to undress and kiss passionately. So this friend of hers, Winnie, has sort of alluded to and mentioned that she is some sort of bisexual, questioning, possibly lesbian, and has a quite voracious attraction to her friend.
Yes.
So
she's cracking on.
It's quite uncomfortable from like a friend perspective to just be suddenly so like, ba-bam, I'm a get with you.
Yeah. It's very much giving Charlie XCX on Guess.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit.
I mean, more like Billie Eilish on
Billie
Guess.
Eilish, yeah.
Yes.
But in a way that like doesn't feel like jokey or playful, but completely serious.
Yes. There's almost no more to add because everything that said is what happens. Miller says to Jenna Ortega's character Cairo, this is inappropriate, you should have written it. She's like, oh, I shouldn't have written it. Well, you're a pussy.
Yeah, she acts in a way that I think is overly emotional in his response to this, because I don't think it's a shock that he thinks this is too far, but also why is he kissing her then? None of it rings true.
No.
Like, none of it feels like this is a like continuation of actions that lead one after the other.
Well, it feels like the film is sort of like, well, this is a line in the sand, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I think the kissing was the line in the sand, not the erotic fantasy.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't have done that. The line in the sand was 6 miles ago, way before the kiss. All the intimate time spent together was too much.
I would like to actually mention something at this point about the homework fan fiction situation that should not have happened. So, when I was in year 10, I got a mock piece of coursework that we were doing just to sort of like see, I think we were doing like a mock exam, and you had to write a creative piece of writing, and I essentially wrote like a torture scene between somebody that I had dressed up to look like Gerard Way.
I remember this.
And a girl that I really disliked at school.
I remember this.
And, okay, I'm going to be totally honest. I'm pretty good at English. And I got an A star in English Lit and A in English language by the end of it. But my teacher, who I really liked and really got on with me, was like, Soph, what the fuck is this?
I remember this.
And I remember at one point I like included, there was a bit where I said venomous rats, and she was like, what?
What is a venomous rat?
What are we doing there?
Yeah.
That doesn't exist. Also, like, the thing is, she knew
who it was.
She knew who I really disliked, and she knew the other student that I had written about.
Yeah.
And was like, Soph, are you well? And I was like, not really. But also, like, it was really, and now it's hilarious.
Yeah.
At the time, she was like, hold up, what the fuck? And this teacher was in no way flirting with me. There was no vibe. We just both appreciated classic literature. Jesus Christ.
Yes.
The fact that this could have happened in like any meaningful way, and the teacher's just like, this is inappropriate, rather than being like, do we need to take you to a therapist?
We need to get a doctor. We need an old priest and a young priest. No, it is genuinely like, well, you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, she then just sends it to the deputy head teacher who, where have you been? We needed you, Queen. Where have you been, please?
You should have been here 10 minutes into the film going, Martin Freeman, why are you leaning down so close to your students for?
Stop breathing on her, Martin. There's
Honestly.
no need. I mean, it really just feels like the intent of it is because you want to see Jenna Ortega and this other girl smooching up on each other. Like, it doesn't really ring particularly, not necessarily true, because none of this does, but I felt like the kind of manipulative sexual stuff between the two of them just felt quite performative. It was kind of like, you want to see this happen, don't you?
It's really odd because from a purely intellectual standpoint, if you looked at the sort of themes and the way this film is presenting an inappropriate relationship between a student and a teacher, it very much is putting the student in like the position of power. No, that is not how this shit works. That is not ever how this stuff happens in real life. A child cannot be responsible for their own abuse. They cannot antagonize or instigate their own abuse. The responsibility is always on the adult, and that is just a fucking fact.
Yeah.
The way they have tried to, like, place Martin Freeman in a position of like, well, his wife's really mean to him and he's not feeling very creative, and this girl actually read his book. Like, shut the fuck up. That means nothing. That means absolutely nothing.
Literally.
This kid could come in with your face on a t-shirt saying #1 fucking fan and ask for your autograph. That means shit all. This kid is not asking for anything, whether she's wearing no clothes, whether she's wearing full covering clothes, whatever. The artistic choice to make her like the instigator of her own like emotional and physical abuse is cracked out.
And then not ever even antagonize that, not even look into it and go, well, why did
question it in any way? Yeah,
just to turn around and go, yeah, well, sometimes it's these damn teen girls who are the problem.
It's very much falling into the trope of like, but what if the woman was lying? Mm-hmm. Where it's like, but the chances are they're not.
Yeah.
Statistics say probably not.
Yeah.
And also like this adultification of somebody that is in a student role who is only barely legal is so fucked.
Yeah.
And the fact a woman wrote this is so detrimental to the way that particularly like young girls in that part of America are perceived and are adultified in a way that puts them in vulnerable and dangerous positions is so fucking cracked out. I'm so sorry for all the swearing, but like genuinely from an actual like standpoint on like feminism and women, this film is disgusting. It's a
deranged.
Disgrace.
Like genuinely deranged.
Yeah.
And not in a fun way.
No. Sorry. Ran over. Anyway, consider that Miller's Girl and your writer.
Yeah. It's very strange because like there could be a conversation in there about how teenage girls experience sexuality and how they're told to behave and how they're sexualized, and then when they try and use that sexuality, that's frowned on. And like there's a lot of complexities to growing up. None of it means that you can abuse your teacher.
Yeah.
No. None of that is what is happening.
Nope.
She sends the essay in to the deputy head teacher, who is obviously like, well, what in the world is this?
And in tandem, she manipulates her friend to make out with her and then record it and send it to the physics/baseball coach teacher.
Yeah.
He receives this image at the English teacher's house, at Martin Freeman's house, and is like, ha ha ha, and enjoying it. Is like looking at a video, I think, or an image at the very least, of these two students of his making out in like underwear.
And he's like,
what the fuck?
he's like, go to bed. Delete her number.
Why does she have your personal number?
Yeah.
So the teachers are again at the school field on the bleachers discussing the fact that Jonathan Miller, Martin Freeman, is being called up in front of the principal about this inappropriate story. And the coach, also physics teacher, Mr. Fillmore, is like, see, this is why you delete it afterwards. I'm sorry, is that not like a fucking felony?
Mr. Fillmore, no. And the only reason that Mr. Fillmore even has they all have each other's phone numbers is because at one point General Ortega literally turns around and says, oh, I think you want to make more money for the baseball team. You should sell these biscuits you make.
The Chicky Bickies are back.
Yeah, different biscuits than the original Chicky Bicky. Oh, wow, you make these biscuits? By the way, biscuits are really nice, but they're like a 3-ingredient thing.
Yeah.
Right? You know, the point is they're made quickly and easily. He is going to make these biscuits, and she's like, you should give Winnie your number because she can make the logo for these biscuits that he is going to produce and sell to raise money for the baseball team. And rather than, as all adults would do, like, no, I don't have time for that. Calm down.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, brilliant idea. Let's do the phone number exchange so we can discuss the logo. Just discuss it in school hours.
Innit?
Like, say, do you like that? Yeah, great. Like, it's every part of this film feels so contrived.
Yeah.
And I found that really tiring because there are ways that you could suggest that they would need to have each other's phone numbers without making up a scenario. Like, there is no mention of the baseball team before this moment, let alone the baseball team not having enough money. As we said, these classrooms, they're like, oh, this is such a podunk little school. These classrooms are filled with beautiful lamps and draped fabrics. And
It looks like an antique shop.
yes, so the idea that, like, well, we desperately need the money, so we're going to sell biscuits to get it, also doesn't ring true. And it's like nobody could be bothered to write this film in a way that had, like, any narrative through line.
Yeah. Manor questions. So that's the vice principal, Joyce Manor. Questions Cairo and Miller separately about their relationship. Despite claiming that nothing inappropriate has happened between them, Miller has to take full responsibility as the adult in the situation. Correct.
Yeah.
Resulting in his suspension. This causes a rift in his friendship with Fillmore, who blames him for not knowing his limits as a teacher. An argument with Beatrice about what happened also prompts Miller to vent his repressed anger at his wife and to point out the toxic nature of their marriage. I'm telling you right now, Helen Keller could tell you that was a toxic relationship. You do not need to be able to hear or see to know that that was a toxic relationship. The idea that this is like, suddenly it's discussed and spoken about at the end of the film. No, it's obvious to every party in that relationship and anyone that witnesses it that is not a good relationship.
It's also incredibly strange because there are so many parts of this story that just kind of give you whiplash, right? So, okay, he likes the story, then he's upset about the story. He kisses her, but he doesn't want to have any contact with her. They go into this room and they're both discussing what happened, but kind of side by side, but not at the same time. And the fact is, General Ortega never lies.
Yeah.
The implication is that General Ortega is trying to sort of entrap him or punish him for what he's done. But he's the one saying nothing happened when he kissed her.
The whole time in this interview, which is sort of like side by sided, he's just lying. He's just lying. She's being honest.
And
at
we're
the very
supposed
least.
to be like, oh no, I can't believe she'd do this to him. But she's not saying, yeah, we had sex and we did all this stuff and he promised me this and he manipulated me. She's like, we read poetry together and we really understood each other and
We
I
met
thought
up
he got
outside
me.
of school.
Yeah, we went to a poetry reading.
Yeah.
We smoked at the same time.
We shared a cigarette once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Which is so fucking appropriate.
literally. And it's also ridiculous because clearly neither of them smoke. But that's not the point.
Oh my God, yeah. As an ex-smoker, hello, me.
Ex though, shout out.
Ex-smoker, don't do it, kids. It's stupid. That every single time somebody takes a drag on the cigarette, they're like this. She's not holding it in her mouth. She's not even inhaling the smoke.
Yes.
That is every single. There is no actually inhaling. There is just. It is so ridiculous. And as a smoker, it's so obvious. It's like when people who are used to shooting firearms watch TVs and movies with guns in them and go, the muzzle flash is all wrong. It's for a smoker, it's like that. I'm like, why can't you smoke properly, man? That's just not hitting your lungs. Let it hit your lungs.
You know what? I could definitely accept it from General Ortega being it could kind of be a sign of her being young. But not from Martin. Martin, you're old.
Didn't stop me from smoking properly.
No, I'm just saying, like, I could accept it as a sign of, like, she's so inexperienced.
Yeah.
She's just doing it because at one
Yeah.
point she mentions, like, cinematically blown smoke. And it is very much that energy. It's very much the way that a lot of, I think at least young girls do start smoking, which is, I think it'll make me look cool and sexy. So, and it doesn't. But, so she's telling the truth. He isn't. That automatically is going to put me on her side. Sure, she he gave her the power to ruin him. And now she said, you know what, I don't think you should be a teacher. The problem is he shouldn't be a teacher. He doesn't like being a teacher. He is apparently being mocked for being a teacher. And the only person who actually gives him like a full dressing down is Mr. Fillmore, who's like, come on, bro, I deleted that picture after I looked at it, so I can't be caught. And that is not the meaning of the story. The moral of the story isn't hide your tracks better.
Yeah.
It's don't do that. That's bad. It's weird then because he goes home and he says, I've been suspended, but I didn't do anything. And his wife starts kind of cross-examining him and not really believing him because from the minute that he started talking about this girl, he was like, she's incredible. She read my book. And obviously the wife knows, like, okay, so your ego's been stroked and you've been acting a fool.
Yeah.
The thing is, at one point, a couple of scenes ago, he said, oh, she's written this erotic story. And the wife is like, read it to me and get me off. They then have this row where he's like, she cared about me and thought I was cool in a way that you don't.
I think it's supposed to be this sort of like final blow up where they finally talk about how they feel about each other. And it didn't feel like that at all. It had no stakes to it. Everything was so obvious. It's not like they had tried to depict this couple as like on the surface a loving normal couple, but underneath there are deeper issues. The whole time they are absolutely hideous to each other.
So
this idea that they're finally talking about it, it's like, were you not already talking about this? Like, how do you go about your day to day and not acknowledge that you are both in absolute hate of each other? Realizing what Cairo's actions have done to Miller, Winnie asks her to withdraw the charges against him, but Cairo refuses, calling Miller's downfall her greatest achievement to date. Winnie threatens to testify against Cairo, but Cairo blackmails her with the photos they made, which would cause Fillmore's suspension as well. She writes her experience into her admissions essay in the same style Miller used in his book. Miller and Cairo see each other outside before the hearing. She stares at him with an unreadable, teary-eyed expression before letting out a small smile.
As this ends, the takeaway is, oh no, please, not Mr. Miller. Why? He should not be in a school.
Definitely Mr. Miller. 100% Mr. Miller.
Mr. Miller should not be teaching these classes.
No!
You know what? The fact that Mr. Miller hates his life is nothing to do with you.
No.
And the implication of this film is the worst thing you can possibly do is lose a teacher their job. There is no greater job than being a teacher, despite the fact that he doesn't want to do it. He's not paid that well. Frankly,
there's barely any students at
there's
school.
no one there that, like, despite the fact that he is literally a predator, none of that counts because it's definitely worse to say Mr. Miller was creepy towards me.
Yeah.
Right? And the same way with this coach, Mr. Fillmore, it's like Winnie's like, I'll testify against you to save Mr. Miller. And Cairo's like, you can't do that because then I'll tell them about you and Mr. Fillmore. And I'm like, yeah.
You should be doing that anyway, mate.
But, like, both of these men are acting inappropriately.
Yep.
And if they'd have just kept normal boundaries, this would not have had to have happened.
Nope.
They were not, this is not some great entrapment. They were not manipulated into creating false evidence.
Yeah.
Everything they did was real. It happened. It was inappropriate.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be sharing cigarettes. You shouldn't be sitting pressed up against each other at weird poetry readings. You should not be writing explicit material or getting that sent to you and then jerking off to it in your weird little shed. None of these things are things you should have done. And so the sort of twist of, was Cairo really the evil one all along, is like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, Cairo's a manipulative teenage girl. Sure. She's had her feelings hurt that this adult man isn't as into her as she wanted. Okay.
This is the thing. I don't know what you're trying to tell me here. Are you trying to tell me that even though this started off as a manipulation, they actually have feelings for each other? Because I don't care about that. You are barely an adult, and he is like a 49-year-old man. He's looking old, is all I'll say.
I don't know who they wrote this for. I will say that there are 2 moments in her erotic creative writing about him that stood out to me in a way that I'm never going to recover from. She described him as having Cadillac eyes.
Oh my god, that was so funny.
And I'm like, what
what does that mean?
Like, long?
Shall I look it up and see if it's a thing?
I don't think it is. I think it's just an example of how purple their prose is.
I'm going to look it
Long,
up.
Stately, difficult to park.
Yeah.
You know, what's the...
Famously admired by Elvis.
And then she
What
also
is Cadillac
describes
eyes?
him as
it is a thing. It is a thing.
Okay, what are Cadillac eyes?
A medical condition called... No, that's got to be wrong.
I think Google's AI has messed up. You know, when they're doing like
okay.
AI overview, they're saying it's having a cataract.
Cadillac eyes, this is what AI says at the very least. Cadillac eyes is a slang term referring to a medical condition called cataracts. Lens of the eyes become cloudy, leading to blurry or hazy vision.
So she was saying...
So she's saying he's got cataracts. I don't think that's
A
right.
man old enough. He looked at me with his
Maybe.
cataract-ridden eyes. I don't get the impression that's what she meant, but if that is true, that's so funny.
Hey, if you were a medical professional and you've heard of a term called
Sound
Cadillac
off.
eyes, let us know in the comments.
And then she also describes his perfect lips. Now, he has lips like that of a Muppet. You know when someone... You know what happens to men, right? Especially when all of the material of their lips sort of goes in their mouth. And it's like a firm line.
It's a beak.
He's rocking a beak, right? And
Yeah.
she's like, oh, his perfect lips. And I was like, could you not think of anything else?
Mate, if Tom Hardy was the teacher, you'd be like, yes, that's
literally.
the lips.
Colin Farrell.
Yes,
Farrell, not
Farrell.
Firth, sorry.
No,
Firth.
not Firth.
I think he might have a beak, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, most of them do, let's be real.
So
you could even, like, I mean, I hate it, and also I'm a lesbian, so it doesn't ever appeal to me. But you could talk about, like, I don't know, like the salt and pepperiness of someone's beard.
Yeah.
Or hair or something.
Yes.
That is sort of like more of a traditional, like, a thing that is noticed by,
You're called
he's
a silver
noticeable
fox
of an
for a
older
reason,
man.
right?
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
He does not have perfect lips, but he also doesn't have
Cadillac
cataracts.
eyes. Cadillac eyes are so stupid.
So at the end of it, we're left with this feeling, I suppose, of going, ooh, who was in the right, who was in the wrong. I honestly think she's done him a favour. He doesn't like the job and he doesn't like his wife, and I think it's probably for the best that he moves out.
Could be worse, right?
It really could be. He's not going to prison. She is 18, as they tell you in like line 1 of this film. The film starts, she's like, I'm 18, by the way.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was quite pointed. So he's never really implicated in like criminal proceedings. I think he's just not going to be allowed to teach, something that he canonically hates. So it really isn't that...
Doesn't feel like a tragedy.
No.
Does not feel like a tragedy at all.
And obviously this is not going to help her get into Yale.
No.
So there's not even a feeling of like, you go girl, get him. Because you're going to write a personal cover letter, whatever, to Yale. You're going to write your personal essay that said, yeah, I manipulated my teacher consciously into having an affair with me so that I could get him kicked out of the school. They're going to be like, oh, you're deranged. I'm going to go with this person who wrote about how they'd like to meet Shakespeare. You know, like...
Oh, honestly, serious. I just can't. Highlights, lowlights, and a
lowlights,
rating
yeah.
out of 5.
Yes. My highlight was just the set dressing. Those rooms were really pretty. I liked them. I liked seeing them. I liked being in them. And I also liked them talking about kudzu because it gave me an opportunity to tell Sophie about kudzu, which is interesting. That's literally it. Well, okay, it was interesting for me. Sophie didn't care. The lights could not be lower. They're off. My low light, definitely the reading of the erotic, that scene, the shed scene, the evil shed scene. That was just gross. I just hated that. It gave me the ick.
And your rating out of 5?
God, 1.
Fair. Okay. So my highlight, unfortunately, will also be again the lights. The lamps were really nice. There's some really good quality lamps. Yeah. At one point, I went, "Oh, look at that lampshade." That is not a very cool statement.
No.
But it's how I felt.
Mm-hmm.
I like the lampshades. I like a period piece. Low light. We didn't mention it in the body of the podcast, but the referral to a woman's genital anatomy as a split fig.
The coach keeps going on about how he's going to make split fig flavoured biscuits.
Horrifying.
Mild.
A rating.
Where's your low light? Oh, wait, that was your low light. Your highlight was the lamp, sorry.
I know, also another low light, a woman being given the opportunity to write and direct a film and making this is horrifying.
Yeah.
My rating out of 5, if I could give this 0 stars, I would.
Yes.
I'm going to give it half a star. That's the lowest rating I can give.
I just looked over at Sophie like, because I'm like, wait, half a star is available?
Yes.
Oh, it's half.
It's half.
Because it's not even entertaining or well acted.
No.
Even some of the other horrors that we have watched thus far have had like a higher moment. This was so boring, so much monologuing. Just read parts, like any quotes that are published, because then you'll just see that the whole thing is like that. It's dull as dishwater.
It's completely cracked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, is there any more to say?
No, I don't think so.
No, I think this is how we were left after watching the film. Air of stunned silence and revulsion. That is the end of this week's episode.
Yes, it
Thank you
is.
for joining us. If you would like to leave us a comment, a thumbs up, or a review on any of the social media platforms that this is currently posted on, please do. We would really appreciate that.
It would mean the world to us.
If you have any recommendations for some films that people would have heard of, that are terrible and you hated and we should cover, let us know. We will be back this time in 2 weeks' time.
Yep.
This is our schedule going forward. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will be getting weekly uploads because you'll be getting a reaction and then our podcast on it, and then a reaction and our podcast on it. If you are just listening to the podcast, we are posting them every 2 weeks on a Thursday. So enjoy them and listen to them and leave us good reviews, please.
Thank you very much.
That would be really nice.
And very well put, Sophie.
Thank you. We're also available on all other social media at RU Podcast. So that is Instagram and TikTok and Twitter, which I refuse to call X. You can find us on there and interact with us if you'd like. You get a bit of the behind the scenes kind of stuff, which can be fun if you're interested in that.
And see our various casts.
We'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Yay.
And have a good one.
Have a great 2 weeks.
Stop assaulting your teachers. Stop assaulting your students.